Okay, so in this next example, we're using the data from table 9.2 to test the hypothesis that the mean fuel economy for type 1 gasoline is greater than that for type 2 gasoline, against the null hypothesis that the two formulations of gasoline yield the same mean fuel economy. We want to test this at the 5% level of significance using our critical value approach. Now, this is the same data we did the confidence interval for up here. So we have a lot of the information we already need. We have our mean, our D bar of 0.175, and our standard deviation of 0.148805. All right, so let's first start with our hypothesis test. Our null hypothesis in this case is that our difference D0, and I'm just going to put D0 rather than trying to find my little subscript there. D0 is 0. In other words, there's no difference between type 1 and type 2 gasoline. All right. On the other hand, our alternate is that D sub 0 is greater than 0, that there is a difference and that type 1 is better than type 2, which means that when we subtract them, we're going to get a positive answer if type 1 is greater. All right, so we've got those two things. Now let's get the alpha. In this case, we have a right-tailed test. So alpha is 0.05. But remember that if it's right-tailed, when we go to our table, we're going to need to look up the area to the left. And the area to the left of 0.05 is going to be 0.95. And we have 8 degrees of freedom, which we saw up here. Okay, so we're going to look up 0.95 with 8 degrees of freedom to get our critical value. All right, so let me go to the stat track. And we still have the 8 degrees of freedom from last time. But we want to look up 0.95. And our t-score is 1.86. All right, so I'm going to go down here and write critical value t is 1.86. So if we get a value from our test statistic that is greater than 1.86, we can reject the null hypothesis. So let's go, and here is our test statistic for paired differences. We want to take our mean that we got for the difference and subtract D sub 0, which is in this case 0. So the mean we got up here when we did our confidence interval was 0.175. So let's do our test statistic. T is going to be 0.175 minus this value from the null hypothesis, which is 0, divided by the standard deviation that we had up above when we did that calculation, 0.148805. Divided by the square root of the sample size, which was 9. Now, square root of 9, we already know is 3, so I'm just going to write that down. All right, so this is 0.175 divided by 0.049601,667. And now I'll do that final division, and that gives me 3.528. Now that is definitely to the right of our critical number 1.86, so we can reject the null hypothesis. Now, as we've done before, let's state our final statement for this hypothesis test. There is significant evidence, and in this case alpha equals 0.05, to reject the null hypothesis. Gasoline type 1 appears to be more efficient than gasoline type 2.